For 21 days, one of these two cats wore a plastic cone and could barely lift his head, and for all 21 of those days, the other one refused to leave his side, doing something a veterinarian later said she had never once seen a cat do. But the strangest part isn't what the healthy one did during the recovery, it's what he did 3 days before anyone knew anything was wrong at all. Their names were Finn and Milo, two ruddy Abyssinian brothers with the same wide ears, the same restless energy, and the same habit of sleeping in a single tangled knot that made it impossible to tell where one cat ended and the other began. Finn was the bold one, first through every door, the one who knocked pens off the counter at 3 in the morning just to watch them roll. Milo was the softer one, quieter, the one who hung back to see if it was safe before he committed, but follow he always did. Grace Whitman had adopted them together 2 years earlier from a shelter in Seattle, and the shelter had one firm rule about the pair: they did not get separated. They had come in as a surrender from an elderly man moving into care, and at first the staff had tried, gently, to home them apart. It had not gone well. Both cats stopped eating, both sat at the bars of their separate kennels and cried for 2 days straight, until someone finally gave up and put them back in the same run, and within the hour they were a single sleeping knot again. So when Grace stopped in front of the bold, ruddy one in the front cage, the volunteer told her the truth. He came with a brother, and they were not to be split. Grace took both. Her apartment doubled in chaos and tripled in noise, and she never regretted it for a single day. Where Finn went, Milo followed. Where Milo slept, Finn curled around him. They were, the shelter had written on their shared card, a matched set. For 2 years, that was simply how the apartment ran. They ate from 2 bowls set side by side. They patrolled the windowsill shoulder to shoulder. When Grace's key turned in the lock, 2 identical faces were always waiting at the door. It was, she would say later, the most ordinary kind of happiness, the kind you never quite notice until something comes to threaten it. Here's something most cat owners don't know. Cats are built to hide pain. In the wild, a sick or injured animal is a target, so the instinct runs deep and ancient. A cat can be seriously ill and still eat, still move, still act almost completely normal, right up until the moment it simply can't, and by then it is often dangerously late. It is why feline emergencies so often seem to arrive out of nowhere, and why so many cats are lost to problems that had been quietly building for days. Grace did not see it coming, but Finn did. 3 days before anything looked wrong to a human eye, Finn changed. He stopped playing. He stopped knocking things off counters. He began shadowing Milo from room to room, pressing against him, refusing to settle even at night. He stopped eating until Milo had eaten first, and on the days Milo wouldn't eat, neither would Finn. And then he started doing something that made no sense at all. He would plant himself beside Milo and cry, a low, insistent, repeating sound aimed directly at Grace, following her with it from the kitchen to the couch to the bedroom, until she finally crouched down and really looked. And that was when she saw it. Milo was making trip after trip to the litter box and producing nothing. He was straining. He was hunched. He had stopped grooming. Grace called the emergency line that night, and the calm went out of the vet's voice the moment she described the symptoms. A male cat straining and unable to pass urine is a blockage, one of the only true emergencies in all of feline medicine, and without fast treatment it can turn fatal in a single day. Grace was in the car within minutes, driving across a dark, rain-slicked city with a carrier on the passenger seat, and Finn crying at the front door behind her. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'll be honest, it stings a little. Hit the button, because what these two did next is the whole reason I'm telling this. Milo needed a catheter, fluids, and 2 long nights at the clinic. When Grace finally brought him home, he came back smaller somehow, groggy and shaved on one leg, and wearing a wide plastic cone that would have to stay on for 3 weeks, so he couldn't pull at the site while it healed. He was miserable. He knocked the cone into every doorway and every chair leg. He couldn't groom himself, couldn't curl up the way he liked, couldn't even eat without the hard rim scraping against the floor. And from the moment he walked back through the door, Finn did not leave him. Not to play, not to explore, barely even to eat. Finn followed the cone from room to room, matching his brother's slow, bumping pace. And at night he pressed his whole body against the hard plastic and slept there anyway, as close as the cone would let him get. He learned to nudge Milo's food bowl closer with his nose and then wait while his brother ate, standing watch over the bowl like a job he had been given. When Milo couldn't reach to clean his own face, Finn cleaned it for him, reaching his tongue carefully through the gap at the edge of the cone to groom the one part of his brother the plastic still allowed. Grace started filming it because no one believed her when she tried to describe it out loud. A healthy cat grooming a coned one through a gap in the plastic, patiently, night after night, is simply not something people expect a cat to do. This is the kind of quiet, stubborn love most people never imagine a cat is even capable of. The hardest stretch came around day 9. Milo stopped eating. He went flat and silent and withdrew to the very back of the closet, the way cats do when something has gone wrong all over again. Grace, exhausted and frightened, very nearly talked herself into believing she was overreacting, that it was just the cone, just the stress. But Finn would not settle. He paced, he cried at her in that same low, insistent voice he had used the very first time, and he planted himself squarely between Grace and the closet door until she simply could not ignore him any longer. She took Milo back in. The vet found an early infection setting in at the surgical site, caught just in time, treatable with nothing more than a course of antibiotics because they had moved fast. Then she looked at Finn, who had refused to be left in the carrier and was pressed flat against his brother on the cold steel of the exam table, and she said the thing Grace would never forget. "That cat is keeping closer watch on your boy than any monitor I own." On the 21st day, the cone finally came off. Milo stood in the middle of the living room without the plastic for the first time in 3 weeks, blinking, lighter, free. And Finn walked straight up to him, and the two of them folded down into that single tangled knot they had always slept in. And for the first time since the surgery, Milo lifted his head and groomed his brother back. Grace sat down on the floor of her own living room and cried. Some bonds don't need a single word to be the realest thing in the room. If you have ever watched two animals love each other like that, you already understand this one. Today, Finn and Milo are 5 years old, still inseparable, still impossible to photograph as two separate cats because they will not sit apart long enough to try. Milo is completely healed with no lasting trouble at all, and Grace pays a different kind of attention now because she learned the hard way that the very first one to know her cat was sick was not her, was not a doctor, and was not a machine. It was another cat. If you share your home with cats, watch them and watch how they watch each other, because they will hide their pain from us, but they rarely hide it from one another. And if you are ever thinking of adopting, look twice at the bonded pair the shelter is fighting so hard to keep together. Sometimes the second animal isn't extra. Sometimes the second one is the reason the first one survives. So tell me honestly, did Finn simply love his brother, or did he somehow know? Tell me in the comments.